Last time on Falcon Radio Theater.
What? There's some people hanging out in the studio with their headphones on and we've got to go in 2 minutes. I've tried asking them to leave. I've tried demanding that they clear out and they won't leave. What are we gonna do?
We've got 1 minute 30 seconds. We've got to think of something fast.
Okay, I'm gonna call campus security.
No, wait. I've got an idea. Gwen is handing out free cookies. Wow, that was fast. Hey, where are you going? Get back here.
But what about the cookies?
There are no cookies. Forget about the cookies. We gotta go on in 12 seconds.
Oh, okay. Okay, mics.
Check. Scripts.
Check. Cookies?
There are no cookies.
Okay, fine, whatever. Let's just do the show.
And now, the next episode of Falcon Radio Theater.
Good evening, guys. Welcome to Falcon Radio Theater. I'm David Matsui.
I'm Walter Lutsch.
And introducing tonight for the first time our new guest, Kaitlin Tremonte.
Hi, everyone. How's it going?
Before we get started with the show, we just wanted to let you know a little bit about who we are.
So Falcon Radio Theater is our attempt to bring back the classic and oft-forgotten art of radio theater, where people would produce dramatic scripts over the airwaves to entertain everybody out there, back when you didn't have TV. And we're trying to do that for SPU. We both have done some acting and writing in the past, and when we heard that SPU had a radio station, we really wanted to do a program, and we thought, you know what? Let's bring back radio theater, because we enjoyed it when we were kids, and we thought it'd be fun to bring it back. So, also, in addition to us putting out our crazy scripts all over the place, we also would like to call out to everybody that if you fancy yourself a writer or an actor, and if you have a script or if you think you could write a script, please shoot us an email, because we are always looking for new scripts, and we'd love to put your work out there, and you can have all the fun of listening to actors read what you've written. And also, if you're an actor who just wants to try out some crazy roles and expand your acting experience, then again, this is the place to do it. And we'd like to stress that you don't have to make any uber commitment. You don't have to be here every week. You can just say, hey, I'm going to go on this next Tuesday, and we can come up with a script for you to read, and you can have a blast. So if you have a script, or if you'd like to sign up and participate as an actor, then please email us at falconradiotheater@gmail.com. And that is theater spelled with an R-E at the end, not E-R.
In addition to looking for writers and actors, we're also looking for listeners.
Yes, just like a zombie horde, we're trying to convert as many people as possible. So, if you've got some spare time at 6 o'clock on Tuesdays, please listen. And if you have any friends who you can kidnap or, just like tie to a chair and have them listen to our stuff, that would be wonderful too.
And if you just want to keep up with our crazy antics, you can follow us at Facebook.com/Falcon Radio Theater. Again, that's theater with an R-E, not E-R. And now for our first script of the evening.
Alright, this is If Cats Had Lawyers by Dwayne Yancey.
One day at a quiet suburban house, a knock is heard on the door. The man at the house goes to answer it.
I'll get it.
The knocking at the door continues.
I'm coming.
The husband opens the door to a woman standing in a finely pressed suit.
Is this the Wellington residence?
Yes. May I ask?
And are you Mr. J.G. Wellington?
Yes, but...
Congratulations! You've just been served.
The process server hands the man several papers, smiling at him all the while.
But what is this?
Your problem now, buddy, not mine.
The process server, still smiling, walks away. The man, stunned, closes the door as he begins studying the papers.
What in the world?
Just then, his wife enters.
Who was it, honey?
I'm not sure. It looks like we're being sued.
What?
Right here, that's what it says.
For what? What's going on?
Negligence?
What have we been negligent about?
Failure to maintain standard of care?
Care for what?
Harassment?
What? Harassment? What is this?
Alienation of affection?
John, have you been having an affair?
No, but apparently we've been doing a lot of other things. Breach of confidence, intentional infliction of emotional distress, res ipsa loquitur. I don't even know what that means. You know what res ipsa loquitur means?
Let me see this.
She snatches the paperwork from her husband.
Who filed this anyway?
She flips through the pages to the first page.
Oh.
Who is it?
The cat.
The cat?
It says so right here, plaintiff.
But how Never mind, Hal. I'm gonna beat his sorry hide. That animal better be glad he has 9 lives. I'm gonna grab him by the tail and wring it around his stupid neck.
The man begins to go off in search of the cat, but his wife grabs his sleeve.
Now, John, don't do anything rash. I'm sure we can work something out.
He wrenches himself free and goes storming off through the house.
Where is that mangy furball anyway?
Wait, that could be defamation. I should have never let Fluffy watch all those court TV shows.
The end.
That was If Cats Had Lawyers by Dwayne Yancey. The part of the narrator was played by Dave Matsui, the part of the husband was played by Walter Lutsch, and the parts of the process server and the wife were played by Kaitlin Tremonte.
And with that, we're going to take a quick break so you guys can listen to a word from our sponsors. Enjoy!
Are you looking for a nice soothing mocha latte to unwind after a long hard day at work? Well, forget about it! You're in Arnie's coffee shop now, where we serve only the manliest of manly coffee drinks. 12 shots of caffeine in every cup. There is no decaf. You'll be up for 48 hours straight after drinking here. Looking for a little jolt to keep you awake while studying? You'll get more than you bargained for here. 1 black quintuple shot espresso with no cream, and you'll be ready to arm wrestle Sylvester Stallone.
Welcome back, guys. Hope you enjoyed that audio assault by Arnie. And now we're going to get into performing the next installment of our original serials.
Last week on The Adventures of Stanley and Bubba, we met Stanley, an ancient demon-hunting monkey, forced to pretend that he's a stuffed toy in order to fool the humans of his dwelling, and Bubba, a monk from a distant land trapped in the form of a Buddha statue. Stanley, convinced that the garbage disposal is a demon, has embarked on a quest to steal the prayer beads from Bubba in order to destroy the appliance, while Bubba, still pursuing his quest to eventually be released from the statue form he inhabits, becomes curious of this other seemingly inanimate object that in truth has life like him. This is the Bead Quest, Part 2.
Stanley lies, exhausted, beneath the table where his owners eat their meals. He has spent many days pursuing the beads held by Bubba the Buddha. He has tried surprise attacking the stone statue, but so far nothing has damaged the Buddha. Not even the full weight of a plate the ancient monkey managed to shove off the table as Bubba was rolling past. He has tried sneakily snatching the beads from Bubba's wrist, but no matter how long he waits, no matter how silently he moves, he can't get them away from his enemy. Up until recently, Bubba transformed the beads along with himself into immobile stone whenever Stanley was just about to grab the string. Lately, however, the Buddha has just taken to hiding them in some unreachable, undetectable place that Stanley has spent many hours attempting to find. So, Stanley lies on his back and breathes heavily, occasionally mustering an angry chatter in the general direction of his hated opponent. Every time he fails to capture the beads, he dances around the accursed Buddha, searching and chattering, but this only serves to drain his energy and amuse the bloated statue. The ancient monkey has so exhausted himself that he's forgotten for what purpose he is pursuing the beads so fervently. All he remembers is that the beads are vitally important and that he must have them. He rolls over with a sigh, clambering to his feet and starting back toward the picture box upon which Bubba sits. Out of the corner of his eye, he notices a bright color outside, so he stops and turns to look. Stalking across the yard is a large, bright pink bird. So bright are its feathers that he is forced to shield his eyes. After a couple of seconds of walking away, the pink bird springs forward and grabs a squirrel in his maw. Stanley's eyes widen in surprise and sadness. While he knows squirrels are not directly related to him, their manner of movement through the trees, their freedom outside among the branches, draws him toward them as kindred spirits. This invading bird has killed one of his fellow tree climbers, and within the territory of his dwelling, he chatters in anger at this trespasser, murderer of tree climbers. Evil creature. Stanley runs at the opening to the outside, forgetting that, while invisible, a door still bars his path. He slams into the glass, bouncing back and scratching at the barrier in frustration. The behemoth bird turns its gaze toward him and seems to examine him for a bit, before stalking away loftily. Stanley once again sneaks toward Bubba, this time a new use for the string of beads in mind. After strangling the invader with them, he can remember what else he had in mind for them, and put them to their original use. But just as he is about to dart forward and grab them in his jaws, he hears the lock turning in the door just a few feet away. He is unable to keep himself from launching forward, but in mid-flight he transforms into the fluffed toy his owners believe they bought.
Aww, how cute! You made Bubba and the monkey friends.
Dave said as he walked into the apartment, pointing to the Thai monkey sitting right next to Bubba the Buddha.
I didn't do that,
his roommate responded.
Huh.
Dave says, concluding that he must have left the monkey there last time he was playing with him.
Stanley glares up at Bubba. He would have those beads, and the statue cannot stop him forever from his quest.
Bubba chuckled to himself, bemused, as Stanley sulked off again in an attempt to find some other means of prying the beads away from Bubba's statuesque fingers. In the day or so since the two had first noticed each other, Bubba had ascertained only two things. One, that the small, stuffed creature really wanted the prayer beads he held on his wrist. And second, that this creature's name was Stanley. Once, after the monkey had been exhausted by his attempts to steal the beads away from their owner, Bubba had read the small tag on the furry one's ear and tried calling him by the name there. Little did he know that this would invoke a furious session of angry chattering, only a few words of which he could understand. One of them was Stanley, repeated over and over again, and judging by the scratching at the carpet and growling noises when Bubba tried to call him Jungle, he inferred the monkey, like him, had two names and vastly preferred one over the other. Initially, he viewed the monkey as nothing more than a creature trying to steal something, like ants carrying off part of your picnic lunch. But as Stanley's plans to take the beads grew more elaborate, he was forced to reconsider. He mused that if only he could get the monkey to stop attacking him for a few minutes and speak in some other language than his native monkey, their conversations would be most interesting. But again and again, Stanley continued to try to wrest the beads away from him, and Bubba admitted to himself that he enjoyed the little game. It was a test of wills between them, and as happy as he was to thwart the little creature's plots, he was also coming to be anxious to see what the monkey would come up with next. In between the ambushes, Bubba continued his routine of meditation, slave box watching and reading. As Stanley went off to plan once more, Bubba resumed his place on the soft, cushy furniture in the main room, facing the slave box. Pressing the mystical and colorful buttons on the totem, he summoned the performers once more to resume their tale. It was a fascinating story about a man in a hat who journeyed to faraway places in search of mystical objects. Bubba was still confused about whether the man in the hat actually owned the items and the people chasing him were trying to steal them from him, or it was the other way around. But what he most enjoyed were seeing all of the fantastic places pictured on the slave box. Mountains and caves and canyons and deserts. He watched them wistfully, momentarily thinking about how he would love to visit these places. Then Stanley scurried past the picture and he watched the monkey go. Strangely, Stanley seemed completely uninterested in him, or else he would have been sneaking. Instead, Bubba watched as the monkey went straight to the large sliding glass portal in the eating room. He tried to go back to watching the slave box, but now Bubba's curiosity had been aroused, so he froze the man in the hat and hopped off the cushioned bench. Rolling softly toward the eating room, he stopped at the base of the chair Stanley was using as a perch. Even as he looked up, he heard Stanley pawing at the glass in front of him and chattering angrily. Floating up so that he was level with the chair, he looked out to see what captivated Stanley so. In the backyard, a strange creature stood as high as the chair Bubba was next to, and stood on two thin poles. Its body was prawn-colored pink, with a long, tubular neck, ending with a small and slightly disproportionate head. On the front of the head was an enormous beak that was slightly reddish. As Bubba continued to observe this new neighbor, the creature turned its gaze his way. The creature gazed slowly and coolly in his direction. Uncertain of how to react, Bubba was going to wave when he realized the creature was looking at Stanley. Bubba relaxed his hand. Stanley chattered angrily at the thing. Bubba overheard something about unspeakable evils. While Bubba didn't think it nice to judge something so quickly, he had to admit that the gaze of the creature unsettled him. It was chilling, as if it mirrored something that had terrified him long ago. Shaking it off, he heard the approach of the elders as they returned to the dwelling and headed back to his post to resume his pose. He would have to find out more about this creature later. While pondering this, Stanley came and, taking a flying leap, suddenly lunged at Bubba. Unfortunately, right at that moment, the door opened and the elders walked in. Stanley froze and camouflaged himself to his hated double, now next to Bubba. The masters of the house went off to the kitchen as Stanley chattered angrily at Bubba. Bubba smiled at the monkey's antics, but the pink creature still troubled him. As the owners of the house went to their respective rooms, and he and Stanley parted ways, he resolved to keep his eye on their new neighbor.
He watches from his place near the portal to the backyard. Stanley's vigil watching the evil pink monstrosity has been a long one. Day in and day out, he rises with the dawn to watch the creature as it marauds through his territory. His territory contains evil, and it must be confronted. He is sure of that. Very little time is spent these days attempting to wrest the beads from the bloated statue's grasp. Instead, Stanley has simply decided he will strangle the monstrous creature with his own paws. He glares through the glass at his enemy, sinking his claws into the soft purchase of his perch, in frustration at not being allowed to destroy this intruder. He hears Dave approaching and quickly transforms to the hated Jungle the monkey until his owner passes. The fluffbird with the mutated beak stares back at him, mocking him. It is during one of these sentry times that the final straw is snapped, the last weight brought to bear, the climactic nail driven into the flamingo's future coffin. Stanley is watching his enemy, like always, when he sees Dave and his friend Walt approaching from the direction of something called the gym. It is a weekly ritual, and Stanley respects it, largely because it gets the occupants out of the dwelling so he can resume his watching of the intruder. It is just as Dave is crossing behind the dwelling next to his own, coming through the backyard, when the accursed flamingo stretches out one stick-like leg languidly and sends Stanley's owner straight to the muddy grass.
Hey, you okay, Dave?
Walter said as he lent his friend a hand on the way up.
Yeah, fine. Tripped over that stupid flamingo.
Did you buy a flamingo?
Walter asked with a questioning grin.
No, some neighbor's kid must have stuck it in our yard. I've just been too lazy to find out who it belongs to.
Dave replied.
That's what you get for being lazy.
Walter said, shaking his head.
Yeah.
This is the final indignity. Stanley spits in fur as soon as the giants have passed him and are out of earshot. No one, with the exception of himself, is ever to damage the inhabitants of this dwelling. The puffbird has crossed the line. Stanley redoubles his efforts in attempting to find a way through the glass portal, but is unsuccessful. He casts about until he sights Baba the Buddha sitting on his picture box. Running full tilt, he jumps onto the box with the statue, which instantly assumes the stony exterior that keeps Stanley from getting the beads. But instead of chattering in anger, Stanley shoves the bloated statue off his perch and jumps down after it. Pushing with all his might, Stanley begins to roll the round stone creature toward the glass portal. Working up to his maximum speed, he lets go at the last second with a mighty shove. Sadly, Bubba bounces off the glass portal with a loud bong sound, and both Bubba and Stanley are forced to race back to their earlier positions and assume their disguises as the owners run into the room to find out what happened. As soon as the room is clear again, Stanley glances over at the statue, his frequent enemy. Despite the frustration he bears for the statue, Stanley has come to realize that if he is to kill the intruding fluffbird, he may have to call upon the only other spirit within this dwelling who can see the flamingo for what it truly is. He will have to ask Bubba for his help.
And that was The Bead Quest, Part 2, by Walter Lutsch and David Matsui. The perspective of Stanley the Demon Hunter, Walter, and the roommate was played by Walter Lutsch. The perspective of Bubba the Buddha and Dave was played by David Matsui, and the narrator was played by Kaitlin Tremonte. Now, real quick before we finish up tonight, we've got a special public service announcement by one of our own characters.
Hello, this is Stanley the Demon Hunter. Well, our stories are somewhat fictional. Demons are a very real threat, and only you can stop them from taking over the world. If you see a demon, call 1-900 Stanley kills all the demons. Thank you. Goodbye.
Remember, that's 1-800-782-6539, 545572558433336667. And we're back, so that's all we've got tonight for you guys.
This has been Falcon Radio Theater. I'm Kaitlin Tremonte.
I'm Walter Lutsch.
I'm David Matsui.
And if you enjoy our radio serials, please come back to listen to the next episode next week.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.